Hey everyone, I'm out here on a beautiful spring day shooting some photos, and I thought I might as well film my intro video for my Luke Skywalker helmet video series, tutorial series of videos. So this is the second video in the how I made a Luke Skywalker helmet video series, and I'm going to show you how I painted the helmet to look like, well, the helmet I'm wearing on my head. Alright, so let's go make a helmet. Okay, so here are the paints I ended up using for this project. I used DecoArt Americana Premium Titanium White Primary Yellow and Carbon Black acrylic paint, DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in Silver, Americana Multi-Surface Satin in Dolphin, and Americana Santa Red. These paints were all supplied to me by DecoArt as a part of their Helping Artists program. I started off by painting the helmet white using Americana Decor satin enamels, but it turned out not to be the best paint choice for this project. I'll show you why a little later in the video, but let's just say that I should have used some artist acrylic paints like this. Anyways, once it was white, I grabbed my silver paint and painted the thing on the front there. Then the red paint came out and I painted the side of that. What is that thing? Is it a cooling duct? I'm gonna call it a cooling duct from now on, for keeping your head cool when you're fighting in your spaceship and your head's getting all sweaty. As you can see, I left a couple millimeters of white along the top edge of that side. I just kind of did it by eye and tried to keep it as even as possible. I actually found it really hard to find the right color of red. I tried a whole bunch of different ones before I ended up with my Santa red. Kind of brings that festive feeling to your space battles. Some black on the intake for the cooling duct, and some masking tape to mask off a nice straight red line down the center. Remember how I was talking about using the wrong white paint at the beginning? Well, this is kind of where it starts getting nasty. After giving 3 coats of the red paint, I went to take off the masking tape and was unhappily surprised by this. So I think what happened here is that the white paint I used had too good of a surface finish, so the red paint didn't stick to it super great. I didn't realize that was what was going on at this point, otherwise I would have painted over with a different paint. I just kind of thought it was bad Santa paint. Anyways, I scraped it all off and repainted as best I could by hand. I drew a line with my fine tipped permanent marker where this black section is supposed to go, and then filled it in using my black paint. I probably should have drawn that outer line using a non-permanent black marker just in case I made a mistake, but that's me living on the edge. I tried some electrical tape for masking off the gray stripe on the side of the helmet, just in case it was the tape's fault that the red paint peeled up. I tried to keep my gray paint as thin as possible, and when I pulled off the tape, I pulled it down and away from the paint. If you look right here, you can see another little problem. The white paint is trying to lift off with the tape. I noticed this only happened where there was caulking underneath, so I removed the tape very slowly on those sections. And painted some yellow along the inner curve of that curve. I printed out a Rebel Alliance symbol and traced it onto some adhesive contact paper. I only had a printout of the inside of the symbol, so I added an extra border all the way around. Then I carefully cut along the lines I drew, trying to cut only through the top layer of the contact. I peeled and discarded the border because I didn't need that, cut a circle around my symbol, peeled off the outer section, and attached it to my helmet where I wanted it to go. Getting it on there wasn't as simple as I had imagined in my brain, because I'm trying to stick something flat onto a domed surface. It seemed to work best if I just concentrated on getting that inside edge smooth and let the outside stay all wrinkly however it wanted. I did realize later that you could get it to stretch a little bit easier by using a blow dryer to heat up the contact. Once I finally had it in place, I gave the inside a couple coats of red paint. I waited for that to dry, and then I stuck the center contact piece in the center. This time I used my blow dryer to get it nice and smooth. I gave a couple coats of black paint to create the border and let it dry. I then tried peeling off the contact, which again started peeling off my paint. I really didn't feel like redoing this, so I used my scalpel to cut along the edge where the paint was sticking to the contact. I was then able to pull up the contact without the paint coming along for the ride. Next, I used my super sweet skinny tape cutting technique to create a beautiful strip of yellow electrical tape, just the right width. If you haven't already, you should check out my tutorial for how to make super sweet skinny tape. You'll find a link in the upper right hand corner right about now. I covered my not so perfect red line down the center of the cooling duct with some skinny black tape I made. I should mention that when you're using electrical tape, the tendency is to stretch the tape as you put it on. However, you'll find that after a couple of days it will shrink back to its original length, leaving you with gaps at the end of your tape strips. So just relax and let it go down without any extra stretching or pulling. Isn't that nice how all my mistakes are covered up by a little bit of electrical tape? I still needed to make the red squares that go on the side of the helmet, so I cut the squares from 6mm foam, angled 2 of the edges, and painted them red. I scraped the paint off the foam where the squares were going to be glued and glued them down. I added some skinny yellow electrical tape on the cooling duct cover, wrapping it around the front and back edges. I used my little black pen to draw little black lines on both sides of the strips of tape. Then I went crazy with some more skinny black tape pretty much all over the place. It took me a while to figure out how I was going to make the decal for the side, but again, skinny tape came to the rescue. I started with one 8cm strip of tape at a 45-degree angle, and then added 3 strips of tape on either side of that. As you can see, the front edges of the tape create a vertical and a horizontal line. Once I had the tape placed properly in the front, I then marked and cut the back of each piece of tape. You'll notice that the angle made by the ends of the tape at the back is shallower than the angle at the front. I needed a circle to go around my lines, so I printed one out and traced it with my skinny black marker. I made little tiny marks with my knife between each line following the curve of the circle, so that I could color it in later with my black skinny marker. I filled in the outside of the circle with my not as skinny black marker, and that was that. Okay, so here's where I decided to try a different kind of paint to see if that would help with my non-sticking paint issue I was having. I needed to make some little circles with V's in them, so I started by cutting some circles from a sheet of contact, stuck them on my helmet in the appropriate places, and then painted inside. This time, to my happy surprise, the paint decided to stay on the helmet and not come off with the contact. I repeated the process for the yellow dots, and they worked perfect as well. Then I took my marker and drew a V on each dot, because that's what you do when you're in space and you want to zhuzh up your helmet a little bit. Now I wanted to protect the paintwork I had done on my helmet before I started giving it the aged, grimy, battle-scarred look. So I got out my DecoArt Americana Duraclear Ultra Matte Polyurethane Varnish and started varnishing. The only problem was my skinny permanent marker wasn't acting permanent at all. Sadly, I had to stop varnishing and go back and remarkerize everything with a different, hopefully more permanent marker. Happily, this time it worked and didn't get washed away. Thanks, Sharpie. Another not perfect thing was there were some little bumps in the tape going around the curve, so I took a little bit of crazy glue and convinced it to just stay down. I also needed to do the same thing with a bunch of the yellow strips of tape that were curved around the front and back edges of the cooling duct cover. I think the part I liked most about painting this helmet was adding all the scratches and scrapes. I find that I need them to kind of make sense to me, so often when I'm coloring a scratch, I'll be thinking in my mind, like, how did this happen? Maybe one day Luke was outside and he didn't have a basketball, and so he ended up throwing his helmet up into the hoop, but then it got stuck up there, and then he tried to climb up the hoop, and then the whole thing fell over and got scratched on the pavement. Could happen. Anyways, it's really pretty simple to make the scrapes. All I do is make a kind of scribbly mark with my black marker, and then fill in the center with some silver paint. I make sure to leave some of the black around the edges of the silver paint, so it looks like it's scraped through a layer of black and then down to the silver of the helmet. And it's good to think about, in real life, where do things get worn and scraped and scuffed? It's usually on protruding corners and edges, or on surfaces that would get rubbed a lot in regular use. Okay, so the very last thing I need to do now is add a grimy, smoky, dirty look to this helmet, and the only things I'm going to use to do this are some watered down black paint and a paper towel. This time I'm going to think in the opposite way that I did for the scratches and scrapes, because the dirt is going to collect in the places that don't get rubbed very often. All the little nooks and crannies and crevices, that's where the dirt's going to really build up. Anywhere that's a high point or a rubbed often place, those places are going to be a lot cleaner. So as you can see, I'm just slowly building up those layers of dirt with my watered down black paint. I don't do too much at once, I'd rather do multiple layers until I have it exactly how I like it, because it is really hard to undo it once it's dried on there. So I think it might be most helpful if I just stop talking and let you watch the footage. I'll speed it up a bit so it's not too boring for you, and hopefully it'll give you a good idea of how I aged the helmet. right, well that's it. There's your helmet. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. I would really appreciate it if you comment, like, share this video, all those things that help my YouTube channel stay a YouTube channel. Have a great day. See ya.